All right. Welcome, everybody, to ANC 6E's October 2024 meeting. We are going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to start with a roll call like we usually do. So I know 6E01 is not here. Is 6E02 here? Okay. What about 6E03?
I'm here.
Okay. 6E04? 6E05? Okay. 6E06? 6E07?
Here, Commissioner Carson.
6E08?
I am here, Commissioner Prince.
Great. And 6E09, I am present as well. So we have four. So like I mentioned, we do not have quorum, so we will not be able to do any voting. But we can at least get through the agenda just to respect people's time and the folks that have joined. So I will share my screen here. Can you guys see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Small.
It's small. Let me see if I can make it
Pretty
bigger.
small.
How's that?
Better.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're going to start with the roll call, which we just did, and then we're going to go ahead and approve. Well, we can't really approve the agenda because again, we don't have quorum, nor can we approve the July 23 or July 24 minutes. But we can at least do the updates from Councilmember Allen's office and then also from the mayor's office. Hopefully Marcus is able to join. From there, we're going to go on to review or talk about the shelter, and I believe we have a deck for that. Thank you, Davina, for sending that. And then we will try and also approve the ANC 6E budget for next year, and then also the QFR for this quarter. Again, if we have quorum, then we'll go into open forum, and then we will just read out loud the next meeting or when that is, and then we'll adjourn. So with that being said, since I do not see any other commissioner that has joined yet, I think from there, we can move on to the update from Councilmember Allen's office. And so I will let them join. Promoting her to panelist. Oh, there we go. Go ahead. Hey, John, can you hear us?
I don't see her as having been promoted to the panel.
Oh, okay. It's saying I can see it in my screen. Now it's saying it's declined. So let me try that again. Do you guys see her now? I see her.
Yes.
Okay. John, are you there? I think you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, I can't seem to put my video on, but okay, so good evening, 6E and neighbors. Greetings from Councilmember Allen's office. My name is Jean Madison. I work with constituents on sort of day-to-day problems and other issues in all of 6E, and I'm happy to be here. So I wanted to share a couple of things. There is good news for Mount Vernon Triangle. Today, the council passed on first vote, Councilmember Allen's legislation to expand the district's Great Streets program to Mount Vernon Triangle, as well as Barracks Row and Eastern Market and all of Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast. So what that means is that businesses located within the expanded map will be eligible to apply for Great Streets grants, which can be used to improve storefronts, upgrade your technology, or improve e-commerce. These grants can be up to $80,000. This is something that Councilmember Allen and particularly the Mount Vernon Sid, Kenyatta's work, have worked on for a few years. So we're really glad to see that it's advancing. And we'll have a second and final vote at the next legislative meeting. But I do think that Councilmember Allen expects some pretty smooth sailing there. So that's great news. And then the small retailer property tax rebate doubled. So just a reminder for your small businesses that starting with this tax year, small businesses can now apply for a small retailer property tax rebate of up to $10,000. Thanks to Councilmember Allen's work with the council to double the credit starting next year. So we know that with inflation and the cost of living going up, this is one way to offset those in a targeted way. I will note that businesses need to proactively apply as part of their filing taxes next spring. Update on the circulator veto override. So today the council unanimously overrode a veto by the mayor and will be putting into law an emergency bill from Councilmember Allen setting aside funds from the sales of circulator assets, i.e. the buses, to support laid off workers. On bus service, in particular, we expect WMATA to release their changes to the Better Bus project in the coming weeks, which we're hoping will incorporate more service that had been originally provided by the circulator. So for Mount Vernon Triangle and 6E in general, I know that this has a huge impact. So we will be very much involved in the Better Bus project and making sure that that line is covered. On voting, obviously that is all on our minds. Early voting runs through this Sunday, November 3rd, and it goes from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. The closest site is to 6E is the Walker Jones campus. We know that from Councilmember Allen, we have now mail-in ballots for every single voter in the district. And those are due back either in a secure ballot box by 8 p.m. on election day, or at least postmarked by then. I'll drop the full link for early voting in the chat after this. Also, I wanted to mention the Fair Housing Practices Act. Councilmember Allen introduced legislation called Fair Housing Practices Act, which would ban large buildings assessing a fee for common area utilities each month. So for folks who are seeing a new cost on their rent, you know, for air conditioning in the common areas of your building, that law would require that that cost be at least included in the lease agreement so that renters know the real cost. The next step for the bill is to have a public hearing, and it's been referred to the Committee on Housing. For sure, we have heard a ton from residents about this all over Ward 6. And then lastly, for I-83 marijuana shops, we wanted just to mention that ABCA continues to crack down on illegal businesses selling unregulated cannabis. And recently, this month, Councilmember Allen held a Zoom panel that covered a lot of the enforcement in detail. So I will throw the link to that in the chat as well for folks who want to learn more about the latest on the ABCA efforts to be more effective there. And with that, I can pass it on to Marcus.
Well, before we go to Marcus, I just wanted to see if any commissioners had any questions or comments. I do, but I wanted to see if anybody else does.
None from me, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, firstly, John, thanks so much for the updates. I did have I guess a comment / question. The Department of Housing and Community Development, I believe they have funds that are available for first-time home buyers, if I'm not mistaken. I am in touch with a constituent who was approved to get the funds. and has called that office 30 times, but has not gotten a single response from them as to when their funding is going to come in, which is really sad because they might lose that apartment that they're trying to buy if they do not get those funds in the next week.
Okay,
Yeah, and so I emailed actually Charles yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. Actually, sorry, I emailed him on Thursday and then actually texted him today. But would
okay,
really appreciate if you could just get this on the top of his radar because I know he's really busy because I want to help this constituent because they're about to lose their home if they don't get.
okay. What would be helpful is if you could send that email along to me and to Marcus as well,
Okay,
so that we can track it together. Oftentimes it's helpful if he and I work together, both the council and the mayor side, to be able to track this stuff down. So that would be great.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, and we will now turn it over to the audience to see if you guys have any questions. Just as a reminder, please limit your comments to 2 minutes, just out of respect to everybody else to make sure that everybody can speak. We will mute you if you go over. That being said, Commissioner Nigro, go ahead. I will allow you to speak. Go ahead.
Hi there. How's it going? Hey, John, I have a question. So it's a
Sure.
question about potential jail. So my question is, why has Councilmember Allen never answered myself back or basically any of those Ward 6 constituents concerning the potential central cell block coming to 501 New York Avenue?
So the first thing I'll say is we've certainly met with you and all the developers and
Wait,
several
wait, that's not the
others.
question. That's not the question. The question is, why hasn't he emailed me back? That developer meeting was a long time ago. We're a year and a half in. So the most recent emails, why not answer me back?
I can take that to him. I do want to make the distinction that it is not a jail. So for those neighbors who are listening, that's a really, really important distinction. It is a holding cell for folks who have been arrested and pending their arraignment. So, Rochelle, I will happily take this over to Councilmember Allen for you. But that's what I have for now.
Okay, because we have a hearing tomorrow. So what, and my question is, I guess you can't answer this for him, but what if we win? That's something for him to think about. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Nigro. Looks like we have Karen Wirt. Karen, go ahead. Karen, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, I sent an email to Councilmember Allen yesterday, requesting that he get back to me on some comments I made on the 25E street shelter, proposed shelter, and I never heard back. Can you please remind him to respond to Karen Wirt? Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, I think that was it. Thank you, Karen. Before we move on, I'm going to take us back to approving the agenda now that we have quorum, since we have, well, it looked like we had 5 commissioners. Now I'm only seeing 4. Are you guys seeing 5 or is it just?
I'm seeing 4, but I see a G-pad that looks like a familiar address and could be Commissioner Rogers. I'm wondering.
Yeah, okay, I'm
He
gonna
sometimes uses that.
right, yeah, let me promote him and see.
I think I see Commissioner Blackson, and then I heard Rochelle Nigro.
Yeah, they can see me. We can see the other 4, the other 3 commissioners.
Yep. G-pad, is that you, Kevin?
Yes, that's me.
Perfect. All right. So I think we're good now on quorum, so we can go back and approve the agenda. So let me share my screen. Okay. So we did go over it earlier. The big thing is that we're going to be talking about the shelter on 25 East Street today. And we're gonna go over the budget and the QFR, the quarterly financial report. Is there somebody here that can move to approve the agenda for today?
I will be happy to move that. I move that we approve the agenda for the October 29th, 6E meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Prince moved and Commissioner Blackson seconded. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
With that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to go back to the agenda. We also have to approve the minutes. Does anybody have any concerns about the minutes from July 2024 minutes? If not, if somebody could move to approve those as well.
Do you propose to do a single combined vote on the two matters?
It's just the July minutes, right?
Right, but I mean, don't we have to vote on approving the agenda?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that. Okay. My bad, I got a little bit mixed up here. So let's move to approve the agenda first. 1 second. We'll start with 6E01, not present. 6E02, not present. 6E03.
Present.
So that means you approve the agenda, right? The president?
Yes.
Okay, cool. 6E04.
Approve, Commissioner Blackson,
Thank you.
6E04.
6E05. Not here. 6E06. Not here as well. 6E07.
Approve, Commissioner Carson.
Thank you. 6E08.
I vote to approve.
And I also vote to approve. Okay. That takes care of the agenda. Now, if somebody could move to approve the minutes, and then we can go ahead and vote on that.
Sure, be happy to do that one too. I vote that we approve the minutes of the July 23rd, 6E meeting.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Thank you. With that said, we can go ahead and vote. 6E01, not here. 6E02. 6E03.
Approve.
Thank you. 6E04.
Approve.
Thank you. 6E05. Not here. 6E06. Not here. 6E07.
Approve.
6E08.
Approve.
And 6E09. I approve it as well. So that passes. Okay. Thank you. That takes care of the housekeeping for right now. With that, we can move on to the update from the mayor's office. Marcus, are you on the line? I do not see you. If you're maybe on the iPhone, if you could just raise your hand. Dale, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I tried to turn on my video for the vote and it said the host had disabled the video. So, and that could explain the reason others could not use video.
Interesting. It might be one of the settings in here.
Yeah.
So I don't think Marcus is here. With that said, I think we can move on to the MPD update from 1D. If you could just raise your hand, whoever's speaking for MPD, then we can promote you. Okay. Finalist. Thanks for joining, Captain. You should be able to speak now.
Got it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Captain Herbernack with the First District. Just some updates. First, I'll start with some of the updates on the election and inauguration. I know that's kind of foremost on a lot of people's minds. MPD will be going to 12-hour shifts with all sworn personnel working from Monday, November 4th until November 8th. Working 12-hour shifts. That's just to be able to respond to any issues that might arise. We aren't at this time expecting any issues, but just out of an abundance of caution, we're going to have all the officers working and officials and managers as well. We will be providing assistance to the Department of Department of Elections, and the Board of Elections for the polling places and any polling sites that may need special attention if they're open late, things like that. And if anybody has any concerns, I'm happy to answer any questions. Separately, I'll put my email in the box if there's specific concerns with specific sites in any of the commissioners' area. Talking a little bit about crime, year to date, we are significantly down in our violent crime and robberies. However, we did have 2 robberies in the last 30 days, one of which we were able to close with arrest. Individuals attempted to steal a young woman's purse. They fled on foot. Officers were able to stop them actually over in Northeast and able to arrest them. So that was a great job by officers. And then we did have one ADW that occurred at 44 Banner Lane in which a person was grazed by a bullet. That case is still under investigation. I will say that we've had additional resources in the area of 44 Banner Lane, 1100 block of First Place, and Tyler House since August. You may notice an increase officers at the Tyler House, 1100 block of First and 44 Banner Lane. That being said, our crime suppression team has been able to get 3 guns just in the last 2 weeks from those areas and arrest a number of people. We've had also been able to close an arrest a number of individuals in reference to a number of thefts from contractor vehicles, things like plumbers and construction sites that we were able to arrest actually over in the unit block of Banner Lane northwest rather. So we're going to continue to have those additional resources at Tyler House throughout the rest of the year and into 2025. And then we'll continue to have our crime suppression team in the area as well, working closely with the 5th District, who has the other side of North Capitol Street, and 3rd District, who has north side. So we coordinate on, especially on the weekends and upcoming holidays like Halloween. We coordinate with all 3 districts to make sure we're responding to any large gatherings, any issues that might arise, any violent crime that might happen, so that we can kind of tamp that down and prevent those from happening. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much for the update, and as always, appreciate your service. I know there's a lot of anxiety about the upcoming election, so appreciate that MPD is putting in a lot of work into keeping us all safe for that.
And I forgot to mention, I don't have a lot of updates for inauguration just yet, and January 6th. I fully expect that we'll be in the same posture for both January 6th and the inauguration, but much longer term, many more days than we are expecting for the election. And that's just based on the complexity and the obviously the crowd size that we'll draw for inauguration. So expect we'll have more information about road closures, activity stuff like that. But I expect that we'll be under the same posture. We'll have 12-hour shifts, every officer working, and no days off for those time periods.
Understood. Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? I have a couple of things, but wanted to see if anybody else had anything. Okay, I guess I can go ahead and get started. Just number one, and I emailed you about this, but just want to put it back on your radar. There were some break-ins in the 400 Mass Avenue garage, so would appreciate if MPD could just pay more attention to Mass Ave whenever resources are available. And then there was also a break-in, a window was smashed where the CVS used to be at 400 Mass. This was on September 3rd. Was just curious to know if you guys were ever able to find anybody that was responsible for that, or if the case was even registered.
I'll have to look into the CVS window smash. I would assume, yes, we did investigate. We would have investigated that unless it was accidental. But I'll check into that and definitely get back to you on that. You said it's a 400 Mass former location of CVS.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that and get back to you. In reference to the garage and just garages in that area in general, we've kind of noticed a trend in that area. So what we've done is, especially like during Capital One events or weekend events where it's busy down there, and during the weekday, we see our busiest times are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday specifically. When I was kind of crunching the numbers, we have a bike unit that goes that is in the area. So I've directed them to kind of pay special attention to that area, and the bike units are more easily can get into those parking garages. And then I'll be following up with that garage specifically. We like to do little security assessments for garages as if they have issues or if they need. We did one in the 6 on the block of Mass just a couple months ago, so I'm happy to do that with them.
Yeah, that would be great. We really appreciate that. And yeah, the break-ins happened last Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, but it makes sense as more events are now coming back to the arena that there might be more traffic.
Right.
This Commissioner Blackson. Hi, Captain Herbert.
Good evening.
Good evening. So excuse my voice. I wanted to thank you and MPD Commander Hall for, your presence and beefing up the presence in the area, and also your collaboration many times that I've called you. I appreciate that.
Our pleasure, and we really appreciate you kind of keeping the pulse on things down there. And like I said, we're not going to let our foot off the gas in that area. We're going to remain there, and Fifth District, I know, is committed to the same.
Thank you.
All right, if there's none from commissioners, I thought I saw a hand in the attendees, but it looks like it's, oh, okay, there we go. Nancy Rosen. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Yes, hello, this is Nancy Rosen. I also wanted to thank the captain and Commander Hall and MPD for stepping up patrols in and around our apartment building at 35 East Street. We've had an uptick in incidents in our back alley, our side alley, and they've been very responsive. So thank you, Captain, and please thank your PSA people.
Absolutely. Yep. And please, you have my email and phone number. So please, I know you won't be shy to call me if anything changes, there's more activity or you don't see officers quite as much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I guess if not, we can go on to our next agenda item here. Marcus, you're not on, right? Okay, I don't think he was able to join. All right, well, thank you, Captain. We'll move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the folks that are here for the shelter, if you could just raise your hand, we can promote you. This is regarding the shelter on 25 East Street. Okay. David, I'm promoting you, Tyler, and Krista.
Good afternoon. I just want to confirm, should we be able to turn our cameras on or no?
I think there's a setting in here that's not letting folks do that for some reason today.
Okay, not a problem. Just want to make sure. And then we sent our slides quite late. I do acknowledge that. Is there an opportunity for your team to advance, or should we advance that, sir?
Yeah, we can.
We can do it too. It's not a problem.
Okay, yeah, if you guys have the access.
Tyler, are you able to advance, or should I advance, sir?
My apologies. I'm able to advance. I'm about to present the slide now.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. So thank you, Commissioner Carlson for inviting us and all commissioners on the call today. I'm joined, my name is David Ross. I have the pleasure of serving as Chief of Staff for the Department of Human Services, an agency where I've dedicated 20 years of my service to the district. I am joined by two of my colleagues, Krista Aguilar, who serves as a program manager with our Family Services Administration, specifically with our individuals team, for which our shelter sites that we're here to talk about tonight falls under that portfolio, as well as Mr. Tyler Edge, who serves as a special assistant on my team. Next slide. So what we thought we would do was provide just an overview of our agency, a little bit about the project. Krista, Ms. Aguilar is going to join us to really go over an in-depth overview of what bridge housing is, what the shelter overview is. Tyler is going to share a little bit about our timeline, what community engagement looks like, and then we'll leave time for Q&A. If that works for this team, we'd like to breeze through these slides because we did PDF it to you, so you can share that with your community, and if possible, just allow as much time as possible for Q&A. Next slide, please. So this is a quick overview of the Department of Human Services, the services and supports we offer residents, which revolve around housing, food assistance, and social services. Of course, we are the lead in promoting the mayor's goals of making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring in the district. We also provide financial assistance through TANF, which is cash assistance for families where there is a minor child in the household. SNAP, or formerly known as food stamps, which ensures nutritional support for families, and of course, Medicaid for our low income residents. We also offer case management, workforce development services, education, self-sufficiency within the past 18 to 24 months, migrant services. Next slide, Tyler. The mission of the Department of Human Services is to empower residents to reach their potential by connecting them to services and supports that meet their plans. So we administer federal public assistance programs, of course, through local laws, and that's part of what we're here to talk about with you tonight. Next slide, Tyler. So a little bit about the project. So some of you may be aware of the Aston, which is the first prototype of a new bridge-style housing shelter that Ms. Aguilar will get into in a little bit more detail in a few slides. We are working with the Department of General Services, Clear Real Estate, and Filet Architects to design and construct this new bridge housing facility. We will be working with ANC council members, relevant stakeholders as we proceed either through this meeting or next several meetings. What we have began, particularly with the Aston, we are conducting the same outreach with residents around Greenport Northwest. And in all three of these instances, we are eager to establish something called a community advisory team, where members of this commission, the community, our team, the service provider once awarded, will all come together and meet and develop what we refer to as a good neighbor agreement. And we can get into that either later on tonight or in meetings yet to come. Next slide, Tyler. So while this is not an exact rendering of what East Street will look like, this is a picture of the previous 801 East Men's Shelter that was really a rundown building that had been repurposed longer than it should have. And to the right, what we have is a new build at 801 East that really supports our goal of helping customers stabilize through a housing first lens. And once that housing is stabilized, then we work to provide supports, case management, and connections to other necessary services that might involve behavioral health, substance abuse, financial planning, things of that nature. Next slide, I'm going to ask Ms. Aguilar to join us to really go into an overview of what bridge housing is, since it's our newest model type that we've introduced to the district. Ms. Aguilar?
Everybody, pleasure to be here with you guys. So bridge housing is governed by the Homeless Services Reform Act. You will hear this often, the HSRA. It offers temporary housing to individuals transitioning from homelessness into permanent housing. It is quite literally, the focus of it is to bridge the gap between homelessness and housing. And as you can see here on the slide, it involves coordinated access, coordinated entry. Admission is based on specific criteria. Case management is required in order to maintain residency. It involves a private room. So there are 2-person suites, private bathrooms, a lot more privacy than a low barrier shelter would offer. Again, getting people ready for that housing piece. Timely transitions. We are building in timelines to make sure people move on to permanent housing. We want them to be ready, but we don't want them to be comfortable and want to stay in this location because permanent housing awaits them. Inclusive services, of course, like all of our programs. And then, as David mentioned earlier, it supports the mayor's goal to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. Next slide, please. Okay, so DHS is focused on the following services for adults age 18 and older, primarily intensive case management. You will hear us talk a lot about case management in the future because it's really important to make sure that individuals are ready. Anticipated length of stay, kind of like I mentioned in the last slide, we want people to move on. So our estimate there is 1 to 5 months. We have not selected a provider yet to run this site, but our focus population is going to be adults in need of medical respite care, adults best served in a non-congregate building, right? So not a low barrier shelter. Adults transitioning from encampments, that could be somebody that has their, is ready for housing, but needs that bridge piece to get to the next step. And then adults requiring specialty beds, and specialty beds look different at each site, but could be a work bed, could be a bed focused specifically for our senior population. And I will pass the baton.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was just having trouble getting to the mute button or unmute button. So my name is Tyler Edge. As David said, I am the special assistant to the chief of staff. Right now, I'm going to go over the estimated project timeline for the East Street Bridge housing. So we started the process in November 2023, where we got council's approval to purchase, for purchase. That once that was done in, as I said, in November 2023, we moved on to the design phase, which lasted from December 2023 to June 2024. And this is where we are now with construction and purchase. So once we got their approval to purchase, now we have to purchase it, and then make sure we're going through the process of ensuring that it is compliant and it is built to DHS's standard, as well as the other government agencies. And then lastly, the grand opening should be happening in summer of 2025. So we wanted to, ensure that we are meeting the ANCs and talking about these new shelter developments. So we just created a brief timeline of how often, or our communication with the ANC 6E. So we shared the property acquisition with you all in June 2023. We later shared the resolution in July 2023, and then we had previously given you all a presentation in February 2024. And continuing that community engagement, DHS is committed to following up with you all, providing updates, making sure that we are being good neighbors, as David said, creating that plan so we can always be abreast of any issues or situations that may occur, making sure that our residents are also adhering to our policies. We do understand that safety and sanitary conditions are a pertinent issue. So again, we are in development of this communications plan. So be on the lookout for more of that, and we will be sharing the slides with the commission. So thank you. And to close out, here is our contact information. So again, you have our Chief of Staff, David Ross. You can reach him at david.ross@dc.gov. And you have myself, Tyler Edge. I forgot the one, so it's tyler.edge1@dc.gov. I'll be sure to update that before it gets shared. And I'm going to pass it back to David.
Thank you, Krista and Tyler. So again, commissioners, we will update this slide before we leave tonight and to ensure you have the accurate information for Tyler's email address. But at this time, I believe we like to pivot to Q&A, please, if that works for this group.
Yeah, thank you so much for that update. That was very helpful. Just to be clear, you're not looking for any vote from us, right? This is just more of an update to us?
This is an update. This is an opportunity to share what is going on as we know it. Again, as Tyler shared when last week came out around February of this year, our projections was that we would be moving clients in around this time, but we anticipated obtaining all relevant permits around late August and September, and that did not happen. So once we figured that did not happen, I reached out to the commissioner, shared that we had some updates, and asked that we be added to this evening's meeting to share that with the community. Just want to get feedback, let folks know as we progress closer to summer 2025. This is not the last time you'll hear from us. We are open and want to come back to as many ANC meetings as you will have us, particularly as we prepare to really dive into what this good neighbor agreement and community advisory team can look like.
Thank you. And yeah, I think more communication is always better, especially with things like that. So we really appreciate your engagement. Commissioners, I know, Davina, this is yours. So anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Mr. Ross, I wanted to thank you. I think anything that's good coming to the city for the underserved and the underhoused is great. I do know one of the major concerns that the constituents at 35E and the stakeholders in that area has is the violence, the underhoused that's already there, the shelters that's surrounding the area. How could you reassure them that this program won't bring additional issues to their area? And can you explain a little more the difference from the traditional shelters versus the shelter and the programs you're bringing on?
Great questions, Commissioner Carlson. Thank you so much. So a couple of differences. One, I was included on an email today by, I believe, a resident who was on our call tonight, highlighting some of the violence and issues that this community has experienced over the past, I think it went back about 10 years. And I just want to note that was specifically around encampments, which brings a different element. It's not a controlled environment. There's no access to immediate services other than our routine outreach by our DHS staff, our DMHHS partners, and our community provider partners who conduct outreach on a daily basis. But again, it's just that outreach, right? And so it differs greatly from a controlled facility. That differs from low barrier shelter, which I think is is on everyone's mind. You all will be familiar with the CCNV or Federal City Shelter that's currently on 2nd Street. That is not a DHS shelter. That is an independently run and operated shelter that is supported with maintenance and construction by the city. But it has a long, rich history of advocacy for the homeless, and federal government identified that space for the unhoused community. We are bringing in this bridge-style housing model, which is different from low barrier shelters in a couple of ways. Low barrier shelters are, hypothermia is starting in a few days, right? And during hypothermia, we are a right to housing municipality, which says during hypothermia, when there are hypothermic conditions, we are mandated to provide space for residents to come out the cold. And so that's where you see folks lining up around 7 or 8 o'clock to make sure they get a slot in the facility. And some residents have expressed frustration about that lineup procedure. The lineup will not occur at East Street. Let me repeat that. The lineup will not occur at East Street. This facility is different in that there is a coordinated entry process. So this is not low barrier shelter, no matter what your presenting circumstances, just coming out the cold. This is a facility where we have, through trial and error, learned a lot about mandating case management where we can, that fits within the Homeless Services Reform Act, moving away from congregate shelter, which is that big space bunk bed situation, to non-congregate, which is what this facility will be. And you can think of a dormitory style situation, right? Where there are individualized rooms that allow us to serve residents that heretofore we could not serve in the way we hope to. So for instance, if there are same-sex families, or if there are older families where parents are adults and children are adults, our current situation would require that family to split, right? So if there is, that mother would have to go into our female single low barrier shelter, and her adult child, if a male, would definitely have to go to a different facility. And if both mother and child are female, but there's no capacity, they would be split. Bridge housing is a type of facility that now would allow us to place that family together. And what we found is by mandating case management, allowing that more private space, more dignified space away from just a congregate shelter, we have seen our residents move in and move out almost double, if not triple, the time that residents do in our low barrier shelter. So one, we will not have the line coordinated entry to even get entrance into the facility. Second, there is mandatory case management. 3, we have data that shows us that this style progresses customers onto permanency quicker. And through our outreach partners, either through DHS, DMHHS, or our community provider partners, if and when customers identify East Street as a new shelter and they were to walk up seeking services for thinking it was a low barrier shelter, Our partners have access to the shelter hotline that would come pick up that resident and take them to the nearest facility that is a low barrier shelter. I hope that answered your question, Commissioner Carlson.
Yes, it did. I have one more question or scenario. Let's say Michael is throwing rocks at the window, trying to get in one of your patients' home. I mean, trying to communicate with one of your customers or consumers. How would you guys go about handling that?
We have a resident outside throwing rocks. How would we know that that is occurring? Because what we do is our security and our security has authority of inside the facility and the footsteps, public spaces, again, public space, and this is where our partnership with MPD comes into place. So I think in this hypothetical situation, I would need to understand how we are informed. If a neighbor were to say, we leave our information and one of your neighbors were to call and say, hey, David, I'm outside my window or I'm looking at my window and I see a group of people throwing rocks at your window, I would pick up the phone, I would call Ms. Aguilar, I would say, hey, I'm getting a call from a concerned resident group. There are some people outside. Can we call the on-site service provider manager and have them take a look or find out what's going on? I'm not sure that answers your question, but again, this is a hypothetical, so.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure there was a process and, you know, you guys had something in plan just in case an incident like that was to occur.
No, definitely, and thank you for that. And part of the reason why you only see Tyler and my name plastered all over the presentation and not Miss Aguilar is quite intentional. Until the facility is open and we're ready to move in our service provider partners and residents, we want Tyler and I to be your main point of contact, right? We don't want folks to try to figure out, well, who do I call for this at DHS? Who do I call for that? Don't figure it out. You email Tyler and myself, and together we'll work with our partners to ensure that your issues are addressed. And then as we get closer to, again, move-in date, we would bring back Ms. Aguilar and then her leadership team, which includes Anthony Newman, the deputy administrator for singles operations, and then introduce them as your programmatic leads. And then I would take a back step as their backup. So we always want to make sure that you it's clear who you contact and that you all have one point of contact instead of trying to act like Google. Who do I call for singles? Who do I call for this? Just call David Ross and we'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Prince, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Dale Prince here. I'm commissioner for the area on the other side of E Street, just south of across the street, as well as the rest of East End and Judiciary Square. As things are now, when there are problems near that property in the back alley or in front along the side and so forth, I think the residents may be relying on calling police to, you know, to look into it. And I'm wondering that if the shelter is established there, if and when, will there be any change with regard to people who are not residents of the shelter, but hanging around or possibly even drawn to the shelter because they want to contact the community or something like that, possibly loitering or for some other reason? Do shelter staff have any authority? Would they have instructions to engage beyond the sort of the immediate boundaries of the shelter? So that's my question about how the shelter would affect in any way, positive or negative, this ongoing presence of people in the alley and so forth in the area. Thank you.
Thank you for that great question, Mr. Prince. And so it's our responsibility as part of your government to work with MPD to, one, make sure that they're aware that we are coming there within the next year. And then two, as we begin to meet with you all, to really put pen to paper with our community advisory team and our good neighbor agreement, that's, sir, where we would spell out sort of our hopes and expectations around security, and that in situations where you would call MPD 911 now, even when our shelter comes, you would continue to do that. With Commissioner Carson's question about that same sort of presence not elevating to a criminality, but nuisance, that's when that partnership, MPD, residents, DHS, we would want you all to call us. Let's reserve our law enforcement team for actual breaking crimes, and let us work together with our service provider partners and residents to have a discussion about how we're not being good neighbors. And in the past, what Ms. Aguilar and her team has done, where we have encountered community frustration about our presence, we hold town hall meetings with our residents to say, hey, this is how we are showing up, maybe not as a good neighbor, and this is what we need to do to make sure that we are a part of this community. So we want to hold ourselves accountable, as well as those we serve.
Thank you, Commissioner Prince. I just had one question. Will this facility have any private security of its own? I know sometimes facilities do have that, so we're just curious.
Great question. All of our facilities have security, and that's again where the collaboration is necessary, right? Because that security will always have authority on the premise and the immediate doorsteps surrounding the facility, but rarely, and I think your residents can attest to this, rarely do those issues occur on on doorsteps. It's usually that public space, that sidewalk away from the immediate doorstep, but certainly in public space. And because there are people don't get arrested in DC for loitering, we want to be good neighbors and make sure we're working with our residents. We're partners with the bids. There are always opportunities to get creative, and so that's in part what this community advisory team will support. How do we get creative to ensure that existing residents aren't your lives aren't completely turned upside down, and for our residents that we're moving in to help them move on to permanency, we're doing so in a way that is least disruptive.
Understood. Thank you. And I guess since there are other facilities, like what is the relationship with MPD like with those private security folks? Like, are there regularly scheduled touch points or something? Like, I'm just curious. That could be something that could potentially help, is if there was a regular meeting between both parties, to communicate.
We're always attending ANCs and meeting together. What we don't want to do is to get MPD in the business of just having meetings, right?
Right.
So part of that community advisory board is finding that sweet spot, right? So we don't want to call MPD every 5 calls, but if we agree the 6th call requires that we should reach out and have a strategy call, then we're certainly open to, and that's what the community advisory team will dictate for us.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions from commissioners? If not, we can go to attendees. If there's anybody in the audience who'd like to ask a question. And Nancy, you should be able to speak. So you're still mute. Oh, there you go.
Okay, there I am. Director Russ, thank you very much for coming tonight. And giving us an update. If you had a chance to view the slideshow we sent, you will probably have a better understanding of our trepidation of what's to come. Can you hear me?
No, I'm listening. I don't want to interrupt.
Okay, no, I wasn't sure. I couldn't tell from the computer whether you could actually hear me or not.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 very quick questions. I would appreciate not being counted into my 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
One is, can we get a copy of the slideshow that you presented tonight? I heard you say you're going to provide them to the commissioners. But can we get a copy?
Yes, the intent is to provide them to the commissioners to disseminate to those on this call and anyone else who would like a copy of it.
Wonderful.
We just asked that give us tonight to Tyler's email was missing a number. So we want to make sure there's accurate information. So we'll send an updated email tonight.
Wonderful. And I'll wait for Commissioner Carson or ANC single member district person to send that to us.
Thank you, ma'am.
The second very quick question. Up until tonight, I had not heard the expression bridge housing. It was called non-congregate. Is it one and the same?
Yeah, it is, ma'am. And it's a very brand new model because most of our facilities up until this point, particularly our low barrier, have been congregate settings. And so this is a new model, bridge housing that we're introducing, which is a non-congregate style of shelter facility.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, I appreciate you manifesting a directorship in my future, but I serve as chief of staff, ma'am. Thank
Oh,
you so
sorry.
No, please don't apologize. Continue to manifest that.
Send it out to the universe. Yes, yes.
ma'am. I received
Yes,
it.
I got it. I got it. All
Thank you.
right. So it does sound like you had a chance to view our slideshow.
I did, ma'am, and that's why I commented respectfully that that was solely around encampments, and it was very clear from the first picture as I kept on scrolling. And again, that is something that we support our deputy mayor's team with. We have done a good job in reducing the number of our residents who are unhoused and living in encampment type situations. The work will always continue, but this is not that, ma'am. Residents will not be camping outside of our facility. Residents will not be allowed to just walk in and request to receive services, nor will there be a lineup situation, which you may be familiar with other low barrier shelters, Ms. Rosa.
Right. And please call me Nancy. Thank you. Yes, I did want to ask about the lineup because you did speak about that.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, we live 1 block away from CCNV, so we're very familiar with the lineup. That's not our concern because we understand what your shelter is all about.
Thank you.
What we're concerned about is when your residents are not inside the shelter, if they hang out, you know, on our doorstep, which we've had problems with, or in the back alley, and will they be attracting,
People who prey upon vulnerable residents who live in shelters.
no, people who prey not only on the shelter, but on us. I mean,
Right,
I'm
right.
disabled, so I have to use the garage exit in the back alley. I'm assaulted every time I go out there.
I'm sorry, Nancy, I'm sorry.
You know, I mean, just last week, I know that the captain's not with us, just last week, there was a person out there setting a fire, cooking something. And when I said it's not okay to set a fire, she threw a stick at me. You know, so it's not just, so it's not, I understand the vulnerability of your clients. You have a better name for them?
They're district residents who are unhoused.
Residents, okay. So, so our concern is for them, what they're gonna encounter in and around the shelter building
Yes, ma'am.
when not inside. But we're also, of course, concerned about our own building residents.
And I appreciate that. And I think that the situation you're referring to is sometimes what we experience around our low barrier shelters where people do line up. There is the expectation that while our residents have access to our facilities overnight and also in the day, we do want residents to conduct business during the day. And because our low barrier shelters do not require case management, that business is not always conducive. This is very different in that residents who are granted and approved to move into this shelter have a plan and really are just looking for a place to call home as they work on that plan. So this is not a demographic that really has time or is interested in sitting around or maybe just hanging out. They have applied for this facility because this meets a specific need and they are interested in moving on to permanency. So that is why we during the pandemic we had something called the PET V, which was where we had some unhoused residents in hotels up and down New York Avenue. And this is borrowing from that model where we saw mandated case management, an application process to move in, daily case management check-ins. And when you have that consistent structured program, sitting around or hanging out for days at a time, it just doesn't work for that kind of operation, man.
I have a ton more questions, but I didn't know if there's anybody else who wants to
Well,
jump.
Nancy, this isn't the first time you'll hear from us. We'll come back. So
Well, we were getting quite anxious that we hadn't heard anything.
well, so I appreciate that opportunity to correct. We've actually been coming since July. And so what I think I'm hearing is we can come back more often, especially now that we're maybe within that year or less time frame. Up until this point, the progress has been very administrative, permits and things that really are just administrative. And so now that we're getting into the construction phase and within the next 6 to 9 months, we'll be identifying a service provider and preparing to move residents in. I think now it's time to get into the nitty gritty of really what community advisory teams look like, what good neighbor agreements look like. So if it works with this entity, we have no problem coming back on a monthly basis.
Okay, that was an excellent segue to my next question.
Perfect.
If you're
Are
ready.
you paying me, Nancy? This is going a little bit too smooth.
Well, I'm trying to be nice. I'm
Thank you.
always
I
being
appreciate
told, be nice, be nice.
Thank you. I told you that. Say it again.
The other issue I addressed in the email I sent out today is, we would really appreciate as part of your engagement strategy. I know you spoke to that, but your elements of that seem to be down the road. And we'd like to have a meeting sooner than that, not filtered through the ANC. What we're asking for is a direct, dedicated meeting with DHS.
So let me say this. Last night, ANC 3F organized an emergency meeting just to have us come out and talk about the shelter, some issues that are occurring up and down Connecticut Avenue. We always want to come out, hear from our community, our residents, and engage. My only apprehension about doing so outside of the structured ANC process is that the ANC meetings are the official mechanism for government agencies to come and talk to residents. This is a regimented meeting. You have processes and procedures, emails, reminders go out. And what I'm fearful of, Nancy, is when we have sidebar meetings, we do not allow everyone who may want to come out an opportunity to come out. So where this body agrees to work with us to conduct or organize meetings through an official ANC process, but maybe a special meeting just so that we're spending time to talk about this, we're completely open to it. We just want to make sure, however we're talking to the community, it's a way that is accessible to as many people as possible.
Right. The only exception I will take to that,
Yes, ma'am.
maybe my nice is going away,
Uh-oh.
is that, the ANC structure, I mean, tonight's an exception to what I've witnessed before, is very limiting for those of us who want to ask questions. Usually it's a 2-minute limit, and if you don't get your question out or get your answer in time, you're done. And that's why we're looking for a dedicated meeting. And we can certainly invite the ANC.
Nancy, do you
I'm
mind?
joking.
Do you mind? No. I'm open. So if you want to email me, Nancy, I can follow up tomorrow. I can give all the commissioners a call. I don't want to say no. I just want to do it in a way that everyone supports. So will you allow me maybe tomorrow and Thursday to make calls and figure out how we might make this happen?
Sure. I mean, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I don't know if you saw in my email, I don't know if those conversations have started yet. But we have a stakeholders group in the neighborhood, which is made up of the tenants association, that's us, and then the hotels and the office buildings. So it's the AOAB and the hotel association. So I believe they're going to be getting in touch, or already have gotten in touch with you.
Yeah. You know what? Send me that email, because I've been, what is his name? I want to say Kevin. Their VP of government affairs. He and I have been on several calls. And so if you send me that email directly, Nancy, I can use that as a follow-up to him to say, hey, we came out last night. There was a request to still engage the community, maybe outside of the ANC process, just to allow for as much engagement as possible. I still may ask the ANCs if they would be willing to advertise on their vehicles, just so we can ensure we reach as much people as possible. But I don't want to spend too much time just talking about logistics. We will make it work.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in here that it's definitely a possibility, and that's something that maybe potentially, Davina, if you have time, you could help facilitate. I actually did kind of a similar town hall event with Charles Allen and Judiciary House, where a lot of people had issues with the shelter, and they were talking directly to Charles and myself. So I think there's a way that we can do a separate meeting where the ANC is still involved.
We would love to, and I will include you, or Nancy, we will include you in that email and make sure we have that discussion. Thank you.
Very much appreciate that. One more question, and then I promise I'll stop. In selecting this particular location, in the site selection process? Was it accounted for that there are 4 other shelters within a 3-block radius?
What is it, Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, our partners at DGS, there is a process to conduct all relevant analysis for building space. They do have that process. So yes, ma'am. And again, there's a conflation that CCNV is a district shelter. It is not. And at the time, about a year ago, I believe you're talking about both Pat Handy sites, the Legacy, and what we refer to as Swing. There was not the intention that Swing would be extended. We have
And the
extended. I'm sorry,
Central Union Mission.
that's not a DHS shelter, ma'am.
See, now that's where we get into a little bit of
Sorry, I gotta cut you off now. We've been pretty generous with the time, but we
Well,
gotta.
can I just respond just for the spirit of partnership? So Nancy, I don't want you to hear me saying, hey, that's not ours, therefore it's not our responsibility. When I say that, I mean, we don't have the authority to enter into agreements, change, do things of that nature. We are partners and we want to work with you, which is where our community advisory team will come into play. Like, what can we do to address security? Is there a way we can get increased MP? Like, I don't know, and I don't want to commit any one group to it, but considering we have 4 shelters, no matter who manages them, what can we do to ensure safety, sanitation? That's all a part of what we're committed to hashing out with this community.
right, looking for a holistic approach to the
Yes, ma'am.
neighborhood.
Completely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Not too bad, Nancy. I appreciate your style, friend.
Appreciate it.
All right, I believe Commissioner Prince, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask that going forward with the engagement that I be looped into that if I could be, because I'm interested in this topic. And I would also say that I would support any kind of mechanism for longer form focus meetings on this topic where residents could speak at greater length, and we could have a more a discussion without the 2-minute timer running all the time. Yeah, and I would certainly be willing to help facilitate that along with, obviously, with Commissioner Carson if she's willing. Over.
Thank you, Mr. Prince. I have an anonymous question. I don't know if you all see that. Should I
Yes,
ask?
if you could please address that.
Thank you. So the question is, how will you ensure the issues affecting Connecticut Avenue addressed in last night's meeting do not happen in the new facilities? So when we were at ANC 3F last night, we were there talking about residents. Well, so here's the thing. Say this. There is an assumption that all new faces are a part of vouchers and that all vouchers are connected to DHS and that case management is a 24-hour concierge service. What I attempted to do last night was to explain the Homeless Services Reform Act is long. As a government agency, our protocol is not to set law, we follow the law. And so HSRA dictates how we can and cannot serve customers. And it also dictates which programs allow mandated case management and which programs do not. A number of the issues associated with last night's conversation stem around wherever you stand sort of in the thought process of supporting or not supporting it. Customers in those programs have the right to opt out of case management for the programs they are in. This is not a program where residents who apply and are approved to partake in the services that will be rendered at E Street. This isn't a circumstance where residents can opt out of case management. If you opt out of case management, you opt out of your slot at the E Street shelter, which we hope to actually give it a name, not just an address. And so that is, I think, the quickest distinction I can make between last night's discussion, which was really around an expectation that we work against the law and maybe not put people in units or maybe remove people from programs based on people's perception of suitability. In this instance, customers know by agreeing to participate in this program, you must participate in mandated case management.
Thank you. Any other questions or from the field? We've got a couple of minutes left. I will say, I think it's, I think there definitely needs to be another separate meeting, kind of like what we just discussed. So we will coordinate, Commissioner Prince, Carson, and myself with you to figure out how we can go about doing a separate meeting. So folks can
Thank
have.
you. We look forward to that. I just want to take a quick second to thank both Ms. Aguilar and Mr. Edge for joining me tonight. And I would also like to acknowledge Teresa Silla, the Executive Director of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, who agreed to join us just to offer clarity, context at all. Thank you, Ms. Silla, for joining us, and we look forward to her participation in future meetings. I hope everyone has a great night.
Hi, this is Commissioner Blackson. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Ross, and your team for answering questions and updating us. And I also would like to be updated on the future meetings, whether it's in or out of an ANC's direct meeting.
Thank you,
This is Commissioner
Commissioner.
Blackson. Thanks.
You have my word, Commissioner Blackson. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all the time that you guys have spent here and updating residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone be safe tonight. Please make sure you're voting, early voting, or next week. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Likewise.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, we can go to the next agenda topic here, which is the budget. Commissioner Carson, do you happen to have that? Would you be willing to share your screen?
I emailed it to you.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it up. Okay, yep, I see it here. Loading a little bit slowly for me. All right, so the budget open. I will go ahead and share my screen, and you can walk us through it, right?
Yes. All right, this is our ANC 6E 2025 budget. One second, guys. All right, the district allotment right here for Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, we're going to get about $5,611. Okay, and once all of those monies are in, right here under total funds available, this is the amount that will be available. 105,000 for Q1, 104,000, 102,000 for Q3, 101,000 for Q4. As we scroll down, the disbursements. Right here in the gold line, under D, this is how much I set aside. We have set aside for personnel. We don't usually use that, or district office calls. For communication, I've set aside 8,000. For office and supplies, 2,000. For grants, we don't usually use it, but I set aside 12,000 to keep track on how it's usually the amount we usually used in the past. And also that goes for transportation also. 400 is set aside. For purchase of service, 5,000, that's what we use for Kern. And then for bank charges, they don't usually charge us, but I set aside 500. And for other issues that may arise, I set aside 400. And then as you go across, you'll see how it'll be distributed throughout each quarter. So like for communication, let's say if we do decide to go with someone to use the decide to go with someone to update our website and things like that, for Q1, we'll have 2,000, Q2, 2,000 right on across, which will equal out to 8,000. That's how much we set aside. The total disbursements altogether will be $28,300. And that's what I have for our budget. Any questions or concerns?
Thank you. I don't have any concerns or questions, I don't think. I mean, I'm just trying to think about the only regular charge we have now is Karen's checks, right?
Mhm.
Because we don't pay for Zoom anymore, which is good. So,
Yeah.
and then I think the big cost that's going to be coming is going to be the website refresh, which Commissioner Abukalaf is working on.
Yes.
I think that's good enough there. Does
And
anybody else?
everything else I try to keep within the same amount as you did. I just upped Kern's a little bit to $5,000 because Kern is usually $3,000 a year, but this year we went over a few times for our minutes, so it added on extra charges. So I put it up to 5,000 just in case we have that issue.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners about this? Otherwise, Davina, if you'd like to move to approve this, that'd be great.
Okay, I move to approve the 2025 financial budget.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Carson moved and Commissioner Blackson seconded. With that, we can move on to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, I think I heard everybody. Commissioner Carson, can you just vote aye?
I'm sorry, aye.
Okay, great. And I also vote aye. So this motion passes. Thank you for that. With that being said, we can move on now to the Q4 QFR for this is now FY24 QFR, right? Q1, I guess, right? No, sorry, Q4?
Q4, yes.
Let me pull that up. Okay.
All right, so this is our ANC 6E Q4 report. The allotments we have as of date was $7,378. We didn't use any disbursement except for purchase of services, which was Kern, which was a $250 check for our meeting minutes. And that was also the total disbursement for that quarter. I think, and that's because we took a rest in August. Also, so she only got paid that one time. So that's it for our Q4 report. And the
Okay.
total funds available at that time, I'm sorry, was $100,478.
Okay, and so Q4 includes October, September. No, or no, sorry, September.
July, August, September.
Yeah, July, August, September. So the July one,
yes.
Is that included here or is that the September one?
That is July. 1 second. I believe that's July. Hold on.
Okay, and then the September one, will that be then in FY25?
For next, yes.
Okay, so we'll
October, Q1.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, I have no issues or questions. Anybody have any questions or concerns? If not, do you want to move to approve that too?
All right, I move to approve the quarter financial report for Q4.
And can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Carson moved to approve the QFR and Commissioner Rogers second. With that being said, all those in favor, please vote aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Great, that also passes 5-0. Moving on. I love that we're ahead of schedule here. This is very exciting. Pull up the agenda again. I believe we're in the open forum. Does any commissioners have anything they'd like to bring up?
I don't.
I hope to see you all at my Halloween event this Thursday.
Can you remind us about when is that, or I guess where is it, and other details about it?
Okay, it's a Halloween event from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Mount Airy Baptist Church. It's not actually called the Halloween event, it's a fall carnival. Well, we'll have rides, food, characters, just a good time for the community to come out and not have to worry about taking their kids trick or treating. We'll have all kinds of treats and different things there.
Oh, go. That sounds fun. Thank you.
And Mount Airy is located at 1100 North Capitol Street, Northwest. So it'll be in the green space. This is an outside event, with the moon bounces, game trucks, and different things like that.
Okay.
Commissioner Blackson, did I put out some flyers for that too?
I believe you got flyers for both,
Yeah, I
Kevin,
got
but you
one
can get
flyer.
some tomorrow if you didn't.
Is that the same? Is that that's gonna be on the same date as the Boys Club giving a Halloween giveaway, right?
I'm not sure what the Boys and Girls Club is doing because I get no communication unless someone shares it. They don't attend any of the meetings, so I'm not sure.
Right. Well, when they share it with me, I'll make sure you get it. Okay.
That's fine. But my events are scheduled for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got your events. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Anything else from commissioners? I guess the other thing, just based on the conversation with the shelter, Commissioner Prince and Carson, I think both of us, all three of us can maybe work together to schedule something. Commissioner Carson, do you have time to kind of own that, or would you like maybe one of us to own it?
I will not be owning that. You guys give me the date. I will attend and support.
Okay, we will help facilitate that.
Okay.
And keep me posted on the date as well. I want to be included on that.
Okay, I'll keep you on that email then as well.
Thank you.
All right, and anybody from the audience that has any questions? No, all right. Our next meeting will be on November 19th at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom again. And with that, I move to adjourn ANC 60's October 2024 meeting. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Great. And all those in favor, please vote aye.
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 All right. And with that said, this meeting concludes. Thank you all so much.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
That was nice
Night.
Thanksgiving.